All right, we're here with Spencer Liff, who has a plethora of Broadway credits to his name. When did you first come to New York, and did you come to New York with a job already lined up, or did you come to pound the pavement?
I actually first came to New York to audition for my first show. I was 6 years old. My mother brought me to New York City, and I auditioned on the stage of the Palace Theater for the first national tour of Will Rogers Follies.
Okay.
And Tommy Tune was there. I had no idea who he really was, but I had practiced my my song "I Can Do That" from a chorus line, made up a little dance number, and I auditioned on the stage. They asked us to come back 2 weeks later for a callback. We actually flew back to New York from Arizona, and they told us that day I got it. My family, my mom sold their house, we went on tour. That was the start of my career.
And at 6, you got your equity card.
At 6, I was on a principal contract, got my equity card. I have not been back on a principal contract since. I didn't know I was going to start at the top. But yes, I remember I had lines in the show. I played the youngest of the 4 kids. And we were on tour for about a year. And then we moved to Los Angeles and started to pursue TV film. And I made it back to New York when I was 9 years old to audition for Big, the musical that Susan Stroman choreographed and Mike Hoffman directed back in 1995. And I booked that show. We moved to New York. I lived with my mom and my brother in a studio apartment on 46th Street, and all of us slept in a bed and a couch. And I did that show for the whole year run that it ran, and that was my Broadway debut.
And where did you go from there? I mean, at 9, that's a big show to be in.
It was so funny because in my mind it was like so long coming. It had been years, and I was finally making my Broadway debut because I had been too old for Gavroche. I had been too old for Gavroche, too big to play Chip. Those were like the kid parts at that time. So Big came around and it was a whole ensemble of dancing kids. And it was an incredible experience. I actually have a bootleg, and I went back and watched it about a year ago, and I was quite impressed with what we were doing at that time. That the dancing was really, really hard for our age. We were so little, and we worked really hard, and it was a good work ethic to understand what that 8 shows a week of really, really dancing in almost every scene and all of that was. And we were a really strong group of kids, most of which still work today, and I still see them. I saw my friend Graham Bowen, who was performing with Book of Mormon last week on the Tonys. I was doing the opening number, and we had done our first Tony Awards together in '96 with Big. So it's like, what, 16 whatever years ago? It's kind of creepy. But, so I fell in love in New York after Big, and I did not want to go back to LA. I stayed in New York and was really lucky working commercially and print-wise with modeling, and was able to really support myself doing that, and my mom that was here. And there was not another show that came around for a long time. It's a very specific market as a kid actor, and I worked until I was about 15, 16, and I started to look very old for my age, and it's hard because of child labor laws to get somebody to hire you if you're not 18 years old and you look it. So I had worked non-stop. I mean, I had done tours, I did tours of Oliver and Radio City Music Hall and like all those little kind of kid things that you can do. But I had about 15 and the work just stopped. Like, nobody wanted to hire me anymore, and it was a really kind of hard transition because you've gone from being wanted and working hard your whole life, and then all your agents that I had for years and years were basically like, you're done. You have to be done until you're 18, and at that age, 3 years to wait is like an eternity, and it felt like everything I had worked for was just done, and for nothing. So I took some time and, kind of enjoyed being a teenager. I finished high school. I had been homeschooled my whole life. I tried to go to college, which I hated. It's not for me. And I turned 18 finally. I waited it out, and the day I turned 18, I had a job on a cruise ship lined up. And I still looked, it's funny, I looked really old at 15 and really young at 18. Like, I didn't age at all in that time. So I started auditioning again, and everybody just said I was too young, So I took a job on Norwegian Cruise Lines. And I went out and did 7 months at sea, and I came back and I tried to audition again, and I was not booking, and I took another job for Royal Caribbean, and I went out again, and I learned a hell of a lot in that time about dancing and performing, and it's a very different environment than an equity contract. And you're working on a ship, and you have to adhere to a lot of rules that I had never had in my life, and And I finally got off that contract and I came back to New York, and I really hit it hard for a couple months, and I booked The Wedding Singer. So.
And then from there you did a number of Broadway shows.
From that point, my career went pretty well. I came back to New York actually, and I knew I didn't want to do another cruise ship, and I had auditioned for Tokyo Disneyland, and I booked Tokyo Disneyland, and I started to have reservations about it, and I thought, I'm going to take myself out of the city again. I really kind of believed that I was ready to hit again here, and I called Tokyo Disney a week before I was supposed to fly out there, and I begged to get out of my contract, and they let me out. The day that I was supposed to be on a plane to go to Japan for 7 months, I auditioned for Wedding Singer, and 2 days after that they had booked me on it. And then a week after I auditioned for Wedding Singer, I booked Across the Universe, which is the Tamar movie. So already it was like a movie and a Broadway show a week after I would have been gone, and I knew at that point that I'd made the right choice. So yeah, things started to snowball. I did Wedding Singer through the Tonys, and then right after the Tonys I left to do the Hairspray movie, and I was gone for 5.5 months. And luckily was able, as soon as I was done with Hairspray, to come back into Wedding Singer, and I closed out that show. We ran until the end of the year. I had made a great connection with Rob Ashford, and had decided that I really wanted to start choreographing and assisting. And so I asked him if on his upcoming project, which was Crybaby, we were about to do the workshop of it, and he'd asked me to be in it. And I asked him in turn if I could assist him, I said, let me assist you for the auditions. And he said yes, so we made up an audition combo. Did that, I assisted for the workshop, and then I just grew from there. I became the dance captain of the project, assistant choreographer of the project. We had our workshop, we had readings, we had out-of-town tryouts in La Jolla, and we finally came to Broadway. And it was a really, really great learning process to see the show from very, very beginning all the way through to our opening, and very soon thereafter closing. But yeah, it was a great thing to have, and it made me realize that that's really what I wanted to be doing, was choreography. And in that time with Rob, I had started we had done workshops for the musical Brigadoon, which was going to have a revival, which ended up being canceled. The early workshops of Leap of Faith, which I had helped out with, as well as working with some other choreographers, Catherine Marshall and Warren Carlisle, and you know, I was lucky and became a name that they would call for pre-production. I worked with Sergio on pre-production for Guys and Dolls, a couple guys. So I was starting to get a taste from kind of how all the choreographers worked, and you start to learn the little bits from all of them, and you learn what you like and you don't like. And then along came Equus, which was totally out of left field for me. It was a play. I knew I wasn't going to be doing a lot, but I was asked to be the assistant movement director and dance captain in that show. And secretly, I just really wanted to do it because I was a big Harry Potter fan. And I wanted the opportunity to be in a play, and I didn't think that would come around very often for a dancer, and you know. So I took it. It was a leap of faith for me, and ended up being a really, really good experience. Totally different. I was definitely bored, but I would not go back and change it, because I learned a lot about actors in that. You know, we were in an ensemble of these incredible performers and true theater actors, not musical theater people, and I'd never really been around that. So it was a nice touch to get a taste of the other side. And then I did 9 to 5. I actually had a guy I knew who was in Crybaby was in this slot in 9 to 5 originally, and he booked a show at Cirque du Soleil and wanted to leave. So Andy Blankenmueller, who was a performer with me in Big when he was, you know, probably 20 and I was, you know, a kid at that time, and he had called and asked if I wanted to do the show. And it was, you know, they were starting their New York run, and I wasn't ready to get back in to a show. I had just closed Equus. I was assisting on this new musical called the Bruce Lee Project that Martin Schur was directing, and they brought in this great choreographer from China, and I was his assistant, and we were working on that. And so I said no, and then they hired my friend Neil Haskell from Sweet Weekly Dance, who went in the track, and he opened the show opening night, and that week dislocated his shoulder. And that night, the dance captain, Mark Myers, went on the swing, and he twisted his ankle. So it was like this, all of a sudden, this cursed track, and Andy called again and said, can you please come in the show for 4 weeks? I know you'll learn it fast, and we need somebody in, like, immediately. So I had only ever done something from the beginning. I'd only been original cast, I'd never gone into something, and I thought it would be a fun challenge, and I knew that I had to learn it like as quick as I possibly could. So I said yes, and I learned the show in 3-4 hour sessions at night, because I was still doing I was doing this workshop during the day. And I met with the assistant choreographer at night, 3 days in a row, learned the whole show in 12 hours, no vocal rehearsal, no put-in, and they threw me on stage. It was a Saturday matinee. They basically, at half hour, I walked through some of the blocking, went over it with my dance partners. They said, look out for that giant hole, look out for that pillar that's gonna raise out of the ground. And they pushed me on stage. And I had the absolute, real, legitimate nightmare when I really had no vocal rehearsal. I knew the title song, sort of, but none of the other music. Because when I learned it, I was learning the dancing, and they would say things like, so you're gonna stop dancing and you sing for 4 counts of 8, and then when that's over, you do this again. So in my head, I'd be like, okay, stop and sing 4 counts of 8, and I got on a Broadway stage and stopped and went, holy crap, I don't know these words, I don't know this song, I don't know anything. So I had to stand on a Broadway stage and fake sing these words, because I had no idea what I was doing. It was a terrifying moment, and I remember I took my score home that night and was like just going over it like crazy so that I would not have to do that again. Anyway, I loved 9 to 5. I ended up being there for the whole run. Every week I'd come back in and it would just kind of be like, do you want to extend another week? Do you want to extend to the end of the month? The guy, Neil, was waiting to heal and they didn't want to replace me again, and so they just kind of kept asking me to stay. And it was a great cast and I loved being there. So I actually rode that one out to the end. And when I bowed on stage at that closing night, it was, you know, as sad as it always is when you close the show, but I had no idea that that would probably be my last kind of foray in the Broadway world. I wasn't expecting to end things so quickly, and very soon after 9 to 5 was done, I had previously submitted my tape and had a couple meetings with the producers of So You Think You Can Dance to be a choreographer, and they were having a fall season. This was in I think 2009, which is right after 9 to 5 closed, and they called me up, and the season had just started, and they said, you're going to be on the show in a few days, pick a song, and I immediately felt like I was going to throw up. And that feeling did not go away my entire first season. And all of a sudden, I was on national TV, in front of millions of people, choreographing stuff, not under someone else's name, but under my name. And it was terrifying and exciting. My first number was a giant bomb. It was the worst thing I ever did, and I did not think I would recover from it. But I picked myself up the next day. They put me back on the show immediately the following week, and my next number was a huge hit. So I all of a sudden, out from under me, I was a choreographer.
So what was that transition like, you know, other than the original nerves and, you know, what had transpired? Like, did you know in the back of your head that you would initially go into choreography? Was that something you had not planned on, but something that you were comfortable with because of all the dancing you had done in your previous shows? I definitely had always known that choreography and directing was in the future. Every show I've ever been in since I was very little, I would kind of always redo it in my head the way that I would have wanted to do it. And I just didn't think it would be so soon. And you have a safety net when you're assisting somebody, and you very well might put a lot of your own choreography into a show, but there's always that watchful eye over you making the choices, and you know, you don't have the pressure of, if this fails, it's not my name, it's not my fault. And at the same time, you don't have the glory when something is a huge hit. It's not you, it's somebody else. So I had choreographed a ton with all of these great, huge, leading Broadway choreographers, but I had never had to call it my own. I had choreographed one thing on my own, and it was, for Crybaby, I won the Sarah Award for Best Male Dancer, and they said that as part of the ceremony that night when I got my award, they wanted me to dance a solo. So they asked for like a 3 to 4 minute long solo, which is incredibly long. And they wanted something from the show, but there was nothing really appropriate, I felt, from the show to do. So I was like, I'll take this opportunity, I'll choreograph something for myself to do. And it ended up going great, but it was definitely like, that was the first thing I'd ever really choreographed solely on my own, and it was for me to dance, so I know my body well, I know what's going to look good on me. And it was a really quick transition to learn how to choreograph on other people.
and you have 90 seconds to tell a story on So You Think You Can Dance, and you have 5 hours of rehearsal time to teach it to them, which is not very long. And at the end of that 5 hours, it's on national TV to be judged by everyone, and it is definitely scary. But the first time that I saw my work on somebody else, and as it grew and I started choreographing shows and I started seeing production numbers that I did, and it was the exhilaration that I felt early on in my performing career from being on stage myself, was watching something that I knew came from like a little spark in my head of an idea, and watch that be fully fleshed out into something that I could see somebody else doing, and it was an unbelievable feeling. And that's when I knew that I had missed that feeling, and I found it again in choreography, and then it was a no-brainer that that's where my life was going to go.
Is there a genre of choreography, of dance, that you prefer choreographing more? You have a very heavy background in Broadway, obviously, but So You Think You Can Dance probably was more modern.
Well, no, they have, in the categories there, I do choreograph the Broadway for So You Think You Can Dance.
Okay.
And I mean, I love Jack Cole and Fosse and Garrett Champion and these old guys that I so admire their work on film, and so I have a soft spot in my heart for that.
Okay.
But I definitely like to choreograph everything. In the shows I've done that are not on So You Think You Can Dance, I've had to do jazz and hip hop, and I've done contemporary pieces, and I kind of like all of it. I don't so much like choreographing hip hop; it's not my forte, but I have to do it. I think it's always good to take something that you're not used to. I like doing really dark, sexy, kind of a little bit off-kilter things even within the Broadway world. And I just made myself I wanted to do 2 shows I just choreographed for Disney. I knew it was the polar opposite of anything I'd done. I never really had to do family-friendly, and I love the idea of getting to work with Mickey and Minnie and watching them do my choreography. It was a complete change of pace from what I had been used to. So everything that I take now, I try to kind of tick off boxes and push myself to the extremes in terms of what I've done already and what I would like to do. And I still perform when I get a chance. Rob Ashford still hires me anytime he does an award show, which is often. So I've done the Tonys and the Oscars and Kenny Center Honors many times, and the Grammys, and all with him. And we actually, I was his associate on the Oscars, Big Number with Hugh Jackman and Beyonce. He won the Emmy for it a couple years ago. Anyway, so I've always kind of stuck around with him. And then I got picked up with Smash. I'd done the pilot, and I think I did about 6 episodes this past season, and actually just spoke with Josh, and I'll be back on this next season coming up. Smash is a really fun show to be on. It's a great thing to be part of. It represents our community well, I think, and it's definitely something to be proud to do. So it's been nice that I've been able to do those little performing jobs at the same time of choreographing, and I don't have to be tied down in New York doing PA shows.
Now, what advice would you give to somebody who's starting out, whether it be in choreography, whether it be in acting, whether it be somebody who wants to make a transition into a different field within the entertainment industry? I mean, you've made a successful leap from acting to choreography, so.
Well, definitely, the first choice you have to make, and I think the biggest one, is where you're going to put yourself. Are you going to go to LA or New York? And I think you can take a really good look at yourself and decide what kind of performer you want to be. Obviously, if you're focused on stage and you have a really strong voice and you can dance and you want to tough it out in New York, then you should come here. If you're a dancer and you have no voice, but you have a really great commercial look, and you think that you want to be on tour with artists and music videos, and you want to dance on Glee and do TV shows, then LA's the place to go. It's a really tough decision to make, and I've seen a lot of dancers where I want to go up to them and I want to be like, you're in the wrong town. I go back and forth a lot, and I see dancers audition for me a lot now, and I see people all the time, and you just want to say, like, if you only went somewhere else, I think you'd be better off. So you have to be really honest with yourself. If you want to be in stage and you don't have a voice, I never loved to sing, and I force myself every single week to go to voice lessons and get a strong book. And I know that you will have heard this advice before, but it is so true. You have to sing if you want to be in New York. You have to sing and you have to dance. Whatever your forte is, you have to work on the other one. You will only get so far. There is no such thing as a singing or dancing ensemble anymore. It does not exist. They don't have the tracks and the money to pay people like that. So get good at both. you know, I never went to college for performing. I didn't deem it necessary for myself. I have now gone and taught at great dance programs and colleges around the country. I've seen the benefits of it. I think that it can be a great thing for certain people. But I think that I don't think it's necessary for everyone. And if you have the balls and you're 18 years old and you wanna hit up one of these towns, and I would say to go for it. I'm kind of one of those believers that I think you either have it or you don't. I know that's awful. You're always going to work on your skills, but I will be honest and say when I read a resume at an audition, I do not look at the bottom to see where you went to college. You were either good or you weren't. And that's where I actually think the cruise thing was great for me, because rather than going to college, I went on a ship and I got a lot of experience and life experience. And if you've lived in your parents' house until you're 18 and you want a little bit of a buffer between that and like trying to make it in a city, and you can get a job on a cruise ship, it's really a great thing. The shows that they're doing out there now are really kind of top notch. You're doing 3 to 4 different shows a week. You will build up your versatility and your stamina as a performer, and you get paid while doing it, and you get to travel the world, as opposed to shelling out like 30 grand a year to take from the couple of the same teachers at your one program. Mm-hmm. There's just an option out there. And then, as far as getting into choreography, I don't know many or any choreographers that did not go through the dance world first. I think it's important to know what it's like to be a dancer. I think it's important to know what it's like to be in the room, how you want to be treated, how you want to be talked to. I choreograph and hell, you know, I treat my room the way that I would want the energy to be when I was a dancer. I like it lighthearted. I like to joke around. I'm sarcastic. I'm fun. As long as you get the work done at the end of the day, it's really not that deep. It's a show. I mean, and I kind of knew all those things because I know how it was to be on the other side, and I'm still on the other side. I've kind of got one foot in, and you know, on both sides of the fence. But I think that the best thing to do is to find the choreographer that you love and that you admire and that you want to know how their brain works, and you just have to go up and ask them, can I help you with this? They may say no, they may say yes, but I went up to the biggest choreographer on Broadway at the time, and I said I want to assist you, and I worked my way up from nothing, and I did it for free at first, and I learned, I mean, it gave me everything. I learned so much about it, and so whether you are, you know, whether it's at your college or your dance studio or whatever that is, put yourself in that situation and make yourself vulnerable and put yourself out there. You will, of course, hear no thousands of times. It's just, if you don't have the thick skin, it's not going to happen. I've had so many projects that I thought were the world to me, like the Chorus Line Revival that was around a couple years ago. That's all I ever wanted to do. I had 9 auditions for that show. They kept saying yes and no and yes and no, and it was finally a no. I cried so hard. I've never really cried over losing a part, but it devastated me, and I just swore that that's what I was supposed to be doing. And within that year, so many incredible things happened that put me where I am now. That show wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. So, thick skin, you have to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and put yourself back out there. You're only as good as the last thing you did. So, whenever I've bombed on So You Think You Dance, I just want to get back on like as soon as possible to make it right, because I know that as soon as you put something good out there, whether it be a performance or a piece you're choreographing or whatever it be, unfortunately, yeah, people will only remember the last thing you did. So I think you have to make an investment in yourself. It's a big one. You have to believe in yourself. I pulled myself from doing shows, which was a steady paycheck, and I could have continued to do them. I was very fortunate and was booking a lot. And I had rent, and I had bills, and I had all these things, and I took a major gamble on myself, and I said, I'm not going to do something this season, and I'm going to try to be a choreographer. And it paid off, but I believe that I was able and ready to do that. And I think that unless you 100% believe that you are better than everybody else in the room, you're not going to get it. Because if you don't want to cast yourself in a part, no one else is going to.
Right. Spencer, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. A lot of great advice, a lot of great story going from an actor to a choreographer, obviously having success at both things. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much.